Tara, it's great to have you here. We're here talking about Dixie four-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about how long has Dixie four-wheel drive been in existence?
So we started Dixie four-wheel drive in 1994.
Okay.
We've been locally on the property since my grandpa and great-grandpa built it back in the 40s. And they initially did bar tile out of that location.
Okay, so I don't know what bar tile is.
Okay. So bar tile is, and if you're a local, or if you've been here a long time, you knew what our old
Right. This is why I'm
buildings
asking, because
looked like.
apparently it's an iconic thing.
So on our roof was Dixie four-wheel drive spelled out in these tiles, and it's kind of cool because they were the original tiles made out of that factory. So everyone that drove by, you could see it just driving down the street, big Dixie four-wheel drive, and it's kind of like a terracotta tile on the roof. So it was a little hard when we tore down the building and we rebuilt to kind of see that go away, but it was time. So.
But it's interesting because, part of what we're talking about today, the main thing is being in a small market. And it's interesting how in small markets where those iconic things, everybody gets used to it. And it's part of the culture of a community.
Yeah.
And then to actually see something like that, then it has to change. And then there's a lot of people that get really
turmoil, and it was internally, family wise. I mean, it had been there forever, and it was, like I said, my grandpa and great grandpa built that building, and so there was a lot of emotion attached to it. And the other thing is, we went with a really, really nice high end building. If someone that's around here hasn't checked it out, it's worth stopping by because it's fabulous. It's a great building. But we had a lot of local customers that I think. They saw us in a different perspective when we tried to take that next step as an organization, as a company. We went from being the underdog with the dirty shop that was, kind of dirt parking lot to now we look like the establishment that we want to portray and we really want to grow to.
So building a new building means that you obviously were growing. I mean, you were the company was strong. You were able to. If you were taking something down and building something up, how long ago did this happen?
So we started construction in 2016.
Okay, not that long ago.
Yeah, so fairly recent. So a little bit of back history about the company. Again, we've been on the property for a long time. My parents did woodworking back in the 80s and 90s. Now antiques are super popular and people will furnish them and do all this stuff to them. They didn't back then. So I was trying to convince these little ladies to spend more on the chair than they bought it for. So it was an interesting market. So that kind of fell off and they swapped over to automotive. My dad really focused in the repair aspect of it. So people would put on lifts and botch them and then they'd come to him to fix them. In 2007, 2008, my brother came into the picture and kind of came in to help my dad out when he was hurt and couldn't turn the wrenches. And then he just started selling. It was in the recession, which most businesses, it's kind of hard to make it in the recession. But they actually grew. Part of that is we have a retiree population here, and they were a little more fixed income. So it wasn't like you're working 9 to 5 people that got laid off or had, financial issues. It was people that are a little more set and they wanted to get out. So you didn't travel as much. You couldn't do as much outside the area. So having such great terrain around here just really blew it up. So that's when we kind of took off and then kept growing. And eventually we were getting from that mom and pop to small business stage where we really had to look at some hard decisions and decide where the next step was.
Yeah, growing. Like you grew out of something and then moving on to that
we
next
matured
phase.
to the next.
It's interesting because what we're talking about here with you, some of the people that we bring in here that we're talking to, these are businesses that really could exist almost anywhere. You have a unique business in that this area specializes and is really built for this type of thing. I mean, it's interesting in this business park where we have our studio, there are people that I know that, one of our neighbors has these four-wheel drive things that they take out and it's part of the culture here, just doing four-wheel drives. Motorcycles or the little ATVs or whatever it happens to be, these are all part of the culture of this community. And so then you guys become a fixture of the community because you support that part of the culture. So specifically, I just want to know then what types of vehicles what is it you're working on specifically? Like what do you all create?
So our focus is a four-wheel drive capable vehicle. So it doesn't matter whether you're going down dirt trails or you're going for the aggressive rock crawling, we kind of build it all.
Okay.
So we will take Jeep straight from the dealership, basically rip everything everything off of it, which is sad to see all the, kind of those parts come off. But we'll add everything new and kind of make it capable to do whatever that customer wants to do. So usually it's going to be lift, wheels, tires, bumpers, lights, those kind of things.
To make it more ready for the crazy terrain or wherever they're gonna take it.
So I mean, you get off road, and some of the roads are fairly decent. They're paved, and you can take your car down it, or an all-wheel drive car down it. And then you get into sand, and you get into rocks, and you get into just needing that ground clearance to really get out to some of the stuff that these people want to do.
Do you support what type of range of vehicles then do you work on or do you support?
Our number one is Jeep. And the reason being it's a Lego vehicle. They design it to come apart and to go back together with different parts.
Interesting.
Toyota's probably my number two. But we deal in all truck markets, essentially. Basically anything that's four-wheel drive. We've had a lot of Subarus come in lately. We've had Honda Pilot. I mean, so we get a lot of different things. Buggies, side-by-sides. I mean, you name it. If it's got aftermarket parts and they want something done to it, we'll do it.
So not necessarily, when you said, you're talking about not necessarily just trucks. This is anything that's a four-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah, that has. We do custom fabrication, but sometimes no one wants to pay the bill to R&D something. So a lot of times it's something, as long as it's on the market, it's usually in a price range that someone's willing to put into it. But we have built from the ground up. It just gets a lot more pricey. Gotcha.
So some of the questions that we want to know about is, and we've already started talking about this, but how long have you existed in this market? And the company itself sounds like it's existed in the family for a long, long time. It's just gone through different phases.
Yep.
Has it always been family run, or how entrenched is it as a family run business right now? Do you have outside people that are intimately involved with it too, or is it just all?
So it's funny. Everyone always thinks my employees are different members of my family.
Okay, right.
So I'll have people come in and ask if someone's my kid or someone's my husband, or they just always have these assumptions. So it is still family owned, but we did bring on an outside partner, really great partner that just is passionate about the industry. So we couldn't have asked for a better person to come on with us. My parents are still involved, and then me and my brother are a strong portion of the day-to-day operations and drive in where the business goes.
Okay. And like you said, this business was doing some sort of has existed since the 40s. And it did some sort of tile.
So they did tile.
If initially, then it went into woodworking. Then basic
automotive, and then
how did that, I just have to know, how did that shift happen?
So different generations and different things. So obviously St. George has always been a small community,
right.
So it kind of had to evolve based on what was going on, and what was happening. So that's kind of most of the evolution there. My dad's always been a gearhead. Sand Mountain, before it was known, he was out there in a sand buggy in the 60s and 70s. So he has a famous trail that people know now called Milt's Mile. So anyone that's coming to Sand Hollow knows Milt's Mile, and that was Milt out paving that trail in his old flat fender Willys Jeep. So yeah, we have quite a bit of ties to the local, even just different aspect of on the mountain versus in the shop. So
you're probably gonna be too young to answer this question because of as I understand the history of the company here, but there's something really, really fascinating about what you just talked about, which is the paradigm shift from going to this to this to this to things that seemingly are unrelated. It's a difficult thing for businesses to be doing this thing right here and then suddenly be taken seriously doing this, having a massive paradigm shift. Now, you weren't involved when that was happening, I guess, or were you?
So as children, we grew up in the shop. So when my parents were doing the woodworking, that's kind of when we were little kids running around the shop as little orphan-looking, dirty kids crawling in the back. So what made it possible for us is my dad is a genius creator. it doesn't matter what material he's working with. He just sees stuff and can work with it and figure out how to get something completed. So whether it's woodworking or automotive, he just naturally is very talented in a lot of those aspects and is able to go one. Gil Almquist, one of our county commissioners, ran to him the other day and he's like, "Oh yeah, your dad built my front door that's still at his house." And so there's still aspects of that still locally.
That's so interesting. And I wonder, I just wonder now as you talk about this, if that is something that's unique to a smaller community, because I try to picture this once again in a bigger market, because part of what makes that work as I listen to this is that they know the person. They know about the person. This is your dad. Mm-hmm. They know about him. They know who he is, what he does, and then they're able to just trust him to kind of with whatever. And so the paradigm shift is a little easier because they're like, well, of course he can do this, and then it just kind of maneuvers, and there isn't as much need for PR, marketing, that whole thing to get that to actually work.
Yeah, so that transition, and even when my parents were automotive, it was small. It was just my mom and dad. So where we really started to grow and where people know us today is, again, where my youngest brother kind of came in. So there's been a lot of different transitions. And so it was definitely great having my dad in there. And a lot of people still know him as the can fix anything guy.
Okay, there you go.
But he always he would rather not charge anybody a day in his life. Like that's the kind of guy he is. Sure. He just wants to help people. So we had to balance that, and it hurts locally with a smaller town to try to make that transition because they know the good old boy Milt he just wants to take care of everyone. And as us looking from the business angle, hey, how can we make this profitable? How do we actually take it it further and get to where we need to be?
That's interesting. So when did this logo show up then? Because I'm picturing this period, because this kind of thing, that's a great logo. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so somewhere along the line from a branding standpoint, this had to happen.
Yeah. So when I joined the team, it was in 2014.
Okay.
Before the new partner came on, before the new building, all of that happened. I came in, there was, I think, 3 or 4 different logos when I came in. And so that was one of the first things I said, guys, we got to figure this out. Which one? And so we went through this little voting process with all of us and kind of did sample questioning. Which one do you like the best? And some of them we'd used to different things. And again, you grow attachment to certain aspects of things. So it was an interesting little experiment, but yeah, we decided on this one. If you talk to a logo expert, it's not the best logo for certain aspects, but for us, it really fits the rock, the adventure side of it. I think it works for what we do.
Yeah, for sure. It really captures that, and it's the reason I bring that up. Is one of the things that I've done. I've spent most of my career doing marketing and branding and that kind of thing. And as you're talking about somebody that's, this is why I'm so fascinated by the changing what you do, the paradigm shift. And then when you get to a point that you're having to message what it is you do, that visual thing that makes you look solid, serious, there's a message behind that. And then it's like, this is what we do. And visually there's to your point, that looks like what I would expect for four-wheel drive, tough, dirty, rocks, that kind of thing. So
yeah.
So you recognize the importance of that, obviously.
Yeah. And it was fun going through that process. As a small company and you're really making all those decisions. And what was really great is when I came in, my parents and my brother and my, everything that was going on was so great and so solid. And all I had to do was put the messaging behind what they were. And so when I was writing mission statements and vision statements and logos, like making all those decisions, I just had to watch them and listen to them. And they had such a solid thing going that it was a lot easier to come in and say what they were.
Yeah. And, and so much of having a strong company is just the perception of the customer, what they see and how they perceive you. And this is having that solid logo is something that really makes a small company look different than a big company. And somebody that's working out of the garage look more like a stable entity. And anyway, that's That's really interesting. And as St. George grows and grows and grows, being able to look like a big company or look like a solid company and is an important thing because like a lot of these small towns, they grow and they eventually grow out of that. Hey, he's just the guy that always does this, and it's like we have to get more streamlined. We have to get a message. We have to be consistent with it. That kind of thing. Like basically what you were saying a second ago. So it's really smart.
Yeah.
So you've already obviously been in St. George this whole time in a small market like this for a long, long time. So the question, why are you here? I think it probably goes without saying, but why are you in St. George?
So we're actually in St. George and Moab now.
Oh, okay.
We expanded in 2018. So right as we finished our building in March of 2017 and began on the property in Moab in 2018.
Awesome.
But yeah, St. George, my dad was born and raised here. We're original pioneer settlers. Our family was. And so I personally kept leaving. I kept leaving. It was too small. There was a lot of things that I'm like, I got to get out of here. This is just not working for me. When I had the opportunity to come back, I kind of had that battle internally of, do I really want to go back to a smaller town? Luckily, when I came back, it had grown quite a bit. And I took on the business, was passionate about the business, and got involved with the community and was passionate about the community. And it changed my whole outlook on the area and St. George and why it's home for me now. But yeah, as far as the shop goes, we have now become the mecca of off-roading. So Moab's always held that kind of number one level for a long time. And so St. George and Sand Hollow has kind of creeped up into that realm. And people now realize, I can drive a little bit further or closer if they're coming from California and hit the same terrain, if not more extreme, and have better amenities than going all the way to Moab.
Very good. And you're in both of these places now.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think when it was coming down to this decision, I don't know if it was on the most thought through, but just the idea of having two shops in the coolest spots was a little too much to pass up on.
Wait, two shops in
the major
in the coolest spots.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and people ask if we're going to expand shops outside, but I think what fits us is we're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about the lifestyle, the sport. And so having it where we can use them and actually utilize them and get out with our customers and kind of build those relationships is key for us.
That's an interesting question because we had some people in here not long ago that make skimboards. And part of their success in this market is the fact that they're not only manufacturing them, but they're involved with that industry themselves. I mean, they were talking about, boy, we're out finding new places to skimboard, and then, we'll find a new place, and the next thing you know, everybody's going there. And that's a really important thing that they're out in the community of the skimboarders, and people are being introduced to it through them. They're in the middle of it. And it sounds like that's important to you.
Yeah,
too.
It's one of those things that you can't. There's no better way to build a relationship with a customer than guiding them through a trail or helping them if they're in a bad spot or they're broken down and jumping in and helping fix them and get them back on there, or educating them why their vehicle's not working the way it should be. So there's really not another aspect that you can get in a sales type situation without sitting in a showroom being stuffy. You know what I mean? It just really kind of gives you this different aspect to use. And then you have the marketing behind it. Every time we go out, we have new content, new pictures, new builds, where if you're a manufacturer and you're in California or you're back east, you only get those chances once a year at Easter Jeep Safari. So they have to spend their whole event just trying to get enough content to last through the year, where we're getting it day in and day out.
So this actually leads us, great segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is how you get your messaging out. So obviously you're interacting with people. People are seeing you. You're in the industry. You're not just in the industry, but you're part of the culture that does this type of thing. We don't have a TV station here, really. We have a couple of radio stations, and so how does an organization like yours effectively do marketing and advertising then?
So we have a very lovely, thank goodness, part of marketing that most companies don't have. And that's that our stuff is just cool. Like people look at it, it draws attention. If you see a fridge, you have to try really hard to sell that fridge. How do you make a fridge look sexy?
Yeah.
How do you make a fridge look adventurous? There's just not a lot you can do.
I just want to hang around where there's fridges.
Yeah,
love them
I
so
just
much.
want to go look
No,
at
it's
fridges
true.
today.
You're right. There's something about being
You
around
can't.
the cool 4-wheel drive stuff. It just feels cool.
Even if you're not into
Yeah.
it, it still catches your eye. So some of the stuff that we do, and a lot of stuff we did early on, luckily for us, was free. So they just wanted some cool trucks at the expo. And so we were able to go park stuff out there without really paying. And luckily for us as a small business, when you don't have a big marketing budget, that was amazing for us to be able to do that stuff. We get involved even on like Friday when our techs were like, hey, let's all go to lunch. We all drive a 4-wheel Jeep vehicle. We're now parading. Everyone's looking over at what the heck are those guys? What are they doing? Why are 10 people? And then you pull up to the restaurant and you have a row, like a car show of vehicles. So it's all over the place how we do our marketing.
That's really interesting.
Social media is obviously huge. That's a great asset. Again, it's easy to get someone to look at something cool. So social media is great. It's a great tool, but it is harder for people that don't have as alluring of product to kind of put in their face.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder then. So social media. Now, social media is something that obviously you can definitely reach people locally, but social media is a worldwide thing.
Yes.
Clearly. So a company like yours, do you serve? I mean, you have these 2 shops. Do you serve people outside this area, or how does that work?
Yeah, early on, we actually had more out-of-town customers than we had in-town
Really?
customers. Yeah, so we had a lot of people that either had second homes here, and so they had their toys here in their garage for coming out to play or vacation, or we just had people that would travel. 2 reasons is, one, we put out a quality product. I've always had very talented fabricators and people that put out a very high quality build. And then 2 is, again, if they're second homes here, it's just easier for them to build it here and keep it here. So, but we have people travel from, I've had Georgia, Florida, California, Colorado, Nevada. Moab we'll see all over the country and all over the world. We do get people from other countries coming through there. It's primarily repairs, where St. George is primarily upgrades. So people will ship them in or buy it from our dealership, and the dealership will bring it over and we'll deck it out. They'll fly in and pick it up.
You're not manufacturing anything. You're finding parts for things that already exist. Is that true?
So we are a little bit of both. All of our kind of custom high-end builds are usually some portion of fabricated in-house.
But you're doing here locally.
That we do here
you've got
locally.
in your shop. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have majority of our builds will order in lift kits and everything that's already prefabricated. As far as my guys, they have the talent and the capability to build anything that is needed. But again, that goes back to how much money do you want to put into building something that you can buy for X amount of dollars if it's going to take that many hours.
So this was my next question then. When you're needing material, whether it's something that you order a part, or if you need the material to help manufacture something, we obviously, here is a small community, like a lot of other small communities, we don't have an airport. Oh, well, we have an airport, but it's not,
airport.
but it's a very, very small airport, very limited. And there's no train, that comes through here, anything like that. We have over the road trucking that brings things in and out of the city. How do you deal with that, the shipping and receiving, and is that ever an issue? How does that work for you?
I mean, it's always a battle for a couple of reasons. One, we are in an interesting spot. We are fairly close, but we're not as close as a lot of shops that are our size or relatable to us and what we do. So where if you're in Colorado, you have people that'll same day deliver to you.
Right.
When you're in California, same thing. You have them close enough that you can run over and grab that part if you need it. If that part's not at our shop, we are 2 days out for anything. So that is a challenge. And then it's a challenge because you're paying freight costs and trying to match online prices. And so you always run into that battle too of how you keep the cost low and still still compete. Luckily, we have gotten a few more warehouses up in Salt Lake recently. So as Salt Lake grows, that benefits us down here because that's next day availability for some of those parts. One of our biggest manufacturers that we use is Terraflex, and they're up north. So again, I can get that next day, and that's super valuable to my customers, super valuable to me to be able to get that quick.
What's the secret? So let's talk about that. You have 2 days out. You're trying to compete against online resources. Mm-hmm. What's the secret to succeeding in that? Because this gets to the core of what we're talking about here. We're in a smaller market. You're trying to succeed in a smaller market. You're competing. Maybe not as many local companies competing against you, but you are competing against these massive behemoth organizations that will ship things in and out here fairly quickly, directly to people. Mm-hmm. So what's the secret there? What do you do about that?
That is kind of the never ending, and it depends. It varies per customer. So some customers just want the cheapest price. You're going to always have those people. And for us, we have to look at it and say, can I match it or can I not? There's times when I say, sorry, I can't. And it is what it is. But we will try as hard as we can to match it or get it reasonable. But it's offering different services that makes it worth their time coming in. So we offer free 101 classes, free tire and jack repair classes. We just have this array of resources. We're the first one to map Sand Hollow and put it out there for free. So anyone coming into the area is getting these resources that are going to help our community and help things going on. So I think our customers understand that we're putting value back into every way possible to make what they do as their fun hobby thing really take off and kind of stay substantial here. So there's a few different ways, but yeah, I'd say that's probably our most valuable is really just making sure we're educating those customers, giving them enough resources and reasons to come in, and have sales guys that know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's a tough market to learn, especially when you have new people, because we deal with so many products and we deal with so many vehicles and we deal with so many different things that we're doing on a daily basis, is to really have those people that understand it. That's so well said, and it's so important. One of the little businesses that we have is where we take old media and convert it into digital. And it's interesting how often we will get on the phone with people and they simply want to feel like they're talking to somebody that knows what they're talking about, and they want to be able to interact with somebody. And there's so much value in that I think it's overlooked when you have, we just have to try to match people's prices. Well, do you really have to match prices? If you add this extra value, which is obviously what you're doing, and you can show these people, that humans that really want to feel comfortable that this other person can give them the right answer, mm-hmm. that they hear me, they know what I'm talking about, I've communicated with them, people will pay more money. Yeah. People will pay for that. Yeah. The comfort of mm-hmm. these people know what they're doing, they're listening to me, they know me as a person, and they're getting me what I'm after. That's worth extra money for mm-hmm. people. Yeah. And it definitely is more valuable to people that have more money. So sure. As I get older, because I'm notorious for being one of the cheapest people you'll know. But I think as experience and we get older and we start understanding, we start realizing how valuable that is. And that's it. What is scary about some of the online stuff right now is that as the younger generations come, are they going to learn that in enough time before they lose all their brick and mortars? And so as we get there, we do have an older clientele. So usually it's 45 to 65 is kind of the majority of our customers. And so they understand that. A lot of ours are in a higher tax bracket, so mm-hmm. that they've ran a business or they've done well. They understand, I think, a lot of that stuff. So it's a little easier for them to understand what they're paying for and the value they're getting when it comes to why it's a little bit higher than Amazon.
So it's obviously changing world. There's always going to be, trying to overcome and find that balance mm-hmm. that makes it work. But I tell you what, that human connection and being able to communicate, there's mm-hmm. great value in that. And I have a hard time believing that even in future generations, that's going to go away. That's going to go away. Yeah. There's real value in it. Well, I mean, think about anything that we buy every day. Why do I buy a car? Because it's too difficult to make one. Mm-hmm. I mean, we all
can
I
all
will
Google it or YouTube it,
but we all sacrifice money because it's easier to have somebody else do something for us than us try to figure it out. And if I can find somebody that's already made the car or somebody that's already grown the orange, then there's value in paying somebody else that knows what they're doing to do it for me and take care of it. And once again, I think part of the secret too that you just said is that you have, as long as there are people that can afford it, then there will always be people that would rather have somebody else that knows what they're doing take care of that thing for me.
And that relationship is valuable too. Once you find someone you like and you get the answers and you can get a hold of quickly, and it's, you know what I mean? It's all about, again, because you have salespeople that don't jive with certain customers and some that are best friends, you know what I mean? So I think it's really making sure that you're creating that relationship with them and getting them to where they feel like a friend, not just in shopping and you don't know that you trust them, or if if their advice is worth anything.
Yeah,
sometimes.
if they have sound advice and and you build those relationships. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing too, getting back to this smaller market idea. There is great opportunity in a place like this. And you're evidence of it, of that relationship. Because there was a business that existed and it almost didn't matter, I would think, it almost wouldn't matter what business your dad was doing as long as it was something that was like repair or fix or create related buildings, because everybody trusted him to be the guy that could just do whatever. And so in a smaller market, that word spreads, people kind of know each other a little bit more and talk a little bit more, and that you have a relationship specifically with a customer, but that also becomes kind of a relationship with the community. And maybe you could talk to that for just a second. You guys, the relationship that you have with the community in general, how do you maintain that, or what's the value there?
It's been interesting since we opened Moab, because Moab's even smaller than here. That's a hard thing to get and to obtain and to keep. Moab's been hard because we aren't locals. Like they know we're not locals. They don't know us. They don't trust us yet. And so it's interesting getting in there, and it's coming around, and there's different people and different aspects of it that you got to work around. And a lot of that just takes time. And it's so frustrating sometimes when you hear someone saying something bad about you, or they don't, you don't even know them, and some things are coming out. You're like, what did I do? Like I didn't even talk to you. So there is something to be said about those relationships and really growing them and letting them develop. And I think what's great is my dad was trustworthy, and people knew who he was and what he did. And so it really helped build that foundation to kind of springboard off. And some moves and some things you did, you look at and say, crap, I shouldn't have done that, but it's done now. So how do I recover from it? How do I make up for that? And there's different aspects of getting involved with the community and getting out there and doing things with the community that you need to do. And so that's what you got to look at, is how do you have that give back? How do you have, you just can't sponsor an event. That doesn't do you any good. You have to be creative in how you get out and how you attack it.
And you're right. And especially because I think, once again, I'm from Denver, and it's interesting. There are local celebrities in Denver that are only celebrities because you see them on TV commercials all the time. Who are you? They're just a guy that owns a car dealership, but I want his autograph because I see him every single day and I know his tagline. And so in a big city, when you have that television and you have the radio, they create their own celebrity by just paying enough money and being on the TV enough and having a personality. But there's nothing, it's not like that here. And so then you're in this situation where, how do we create that same thing? I'm actually so glad that I'm talking to you about this, because you're talking now about not just St. George, but I've been to Moab before. I love Moab. But it's even, like you said, it's even a smaller place. One of the issues that people have to deal with when moving into a small market, I know I did when I brought my business down here, was, where do I put it? If I were back in Denver, there would be thousands of every shape and size and place and neighborhood and you could ever imagine. I could go dig through and find something, the perfect thing for me or near perfect. Down here, there was a much more limited supply of options. How does now obviously your building your place already existed and you were able to build something that met your needs, but then you have to move into a smaller market too. How do you make that work?
So we actually, when we were getting ready to do the construction in St. George, we looked at a lot of options. When you're going to invest that kind of money, you want to make sure you know which way to go. So we looked at obviously what it would cost us and what it would be to do it at that location. And we looked at multiple locations around town. A lot of people are out in Fort Pierce Industrial Park. For us, that was too far away. We didn't want to be that far out. We liked being right off the freeway. It's easy to tell a customer how to get there. It's especially when we have an out-of-town clientele.
Right.
So for us, that was super important when we were making that decision of why we wanted to stay where we were at. Moab was interesting. We were going to take over a place. Ended up kind of falling through. We actually are just over the border in San Juan County versus Grand County where Moab resides. And now hindsight, that was the best decision we ever made. And the reason being is Moab is getting more restrictive. They're closing down on the city. They're kind of trying to cut off some of the motorized off-road use out there. And so you have different things that you're dealing with in Moab City versus being in a county kind of rural area. They're a lot lighter on regulations and what they're trying to accomplish. So it really ended up working out for us. We were in a brand new building. I had to design 2 buildings back to back from the ground up, and interior design and layouts. And I mean, it was fun, but it was crazy. But yeah, it was an interesting dynamic and where we ended up, and it just happened to be the right place. And I think there's something that just when your heart's in it, things fall into place and you put the work in. Yeah,
for sure. So this is actually perfect segue again. You're talking about the city becoming more restrictive in Moab. We're watching St. George really grow. We're watching some of the communities immediately around St. George, Washington County in general, just growing in different ways. How is it doing business in specifically this city in Washington County in general? And do you get the kind of support that you need? And if not, what could a local government be doing better to better support an organization like yours to make sure that you not only are successful here, but want to stay here?
So it's hard we don't work as much with the city. Our important aspects are looking at the BLM. It's looking at the tourism office. Our tourism office is phenomenal. Super supportive of Sand Hollow and what it can bring and marketing and helping drive businesses around that. BLM being workable. You go to the Moab BLM, it is not the same. It's just a whole different ballgame up there. So a lot of those organizations here locally are what make our life night and day difference.
So everybody in the area knows about your sign. And it's kind of, once again, speaking of small markets, it's one of those iconic things that everybody knows about. Tell us a little bit about the background on that sign and what it is for people that haven't seen it before.
So when we were doing construction, there was one part that we knew we couldn't get rid of, and that is our sign out front. My dad just thought it would be the coolest thing to have a Jeep on a pole. So as you're driving down the boulevard, it's hard not to look over and see this Jeep hanging 20 plus feet in the air, just in the middle of nowhere. So it's something that, oh wait, is that the Jeep on the pole or the truck on the, so that's kind of one thing of when we're trying to explain where we're at. And we build this gigantuous building. And people still are like, oh, there's a new build.
But they know
by the Jeep on the pole.
By the Jeep on the pole.
And it's even hilarious. Now a Pokemon Go spot. So, I mean, if you're looking to play Pokemon Go, swing by, and that's one of the stops on their
That is
game.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a great, yeah, because it is interesting once again in a small market to have those iconic things that everybody knows. Have you seen that thing? Yeah, I know where that is. Well, that's where we are.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
awesome.
put Santa up there during Christmas time. It's got headlights that work. Those are
wow.
our night lights.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of a cool piece.
St. George is seeing an influx of people. It's growing like crazy. I mean, and the projections for St. George are through the roof. It's growth. And a lot of these people are coming from places like California. Now, I'm just curious then, how has that influx impacted your business?
So there's good and bad in everything, as we all know. It's great because we have a lot more customers coming in that are already in the lifestyle, that are already potential customers. But with that, we've seen an influx of more businesses pop up that are in direct competition to kind of what we do. And what's always been interesting is we've pulled quite a bit from out of town. And I think that's something that, again, when you're doing research for a business, you have to look at that. Same thing as Moab. You only have a population of 5,000. These guys are coming from Southern California. They expect, millions of people that are potential customers, and you come into 100,000 customer base style. So it's interesting. And I think as long as we stay on our game, keep offering the products that we're offering, keep doing the service that we're doing, then we'll still come out on top. But it's an always changing game.
It's a fascinating topic too, because when the interesting thing about a small market like this is that you're the first one in. You can move into a market and put your stake in the ground and then own it. And if you can communicate and strengthen those relationships, you're there ahead of everybody else. Mm-hmm. And then when everybody else, then they're playing catch up with you.
I think what is the most interesting that I found watching people come in and open up business and start doing things is there's something to be said about a small town culture. And like we said, that you have to do that groundwork, and it doesn't happen overnight. And that Utah personalities and certain areas have a different way that they relate to each other. Mm-hmm. So if you're from the East Coast, you're probably not going to talk to someone here like you talk to them on the East Coast, and you have to completely portray a different mindset, or those customers aren't going to come to you. So I think what's great for us is that we grew up that way. So we grew up treating customers the way that they're accustomed to being treated. So when you come into a new market, you have to be very careful on how you approach St. George people. We are still very small town in so many aspects, even though we're growing so fast. A lot of our population is still in that small town mind.
How can a city government, a county government, a state government help a company like yours not only thrive, but actually want to stay here?
So what's really great about our area is we have so many groups that are kind of working together and have that outdoor lifestyle mindset for it. So we have a tourism office that's great, that supports it, that pushes it, that wants to see it succeed. We have a lot more flexible BLM offices. Even our state parks are just a lot more friendly to work with and to get permits or to get anything kind of pushed through, or at least get you in the right direction. But the city drives that lifestyle, and I think the people that move here are into that lifestyle. So it helps when you have people that really want to see it grow and see it succeed. When it's Moab and you have a different mindset, and it is a very environmental friendly to the point that it's pushing away a lot of its opportunity. That's going to push away those businesses that are going to push away restaurants aren't going to be able to succeed if you don't have that tourism and those people coming in and spending those dollars. So it really does play a big role and impacts the business and what they can and want to do in that community. And
you're even dealing in this case with federal agencies like the Bureau of Land Management specifically. Mm-hmm. You just mentioned that one a second ago, mm-hmm. where their regulations on what you can and can't do, because your success in many cases is going to depend on whether or not people are able to use public lands mm-hmm. to use the four-wheel drives.
Yeah, and what's interesting as we grow, more eyes come onto what you're doing. So what we could do 5 years ago, and just no one knew or cared what we were doing, now you're seeing people paying more attention. So we do have more conversations with the BLM. We do have a few more things that are having spotlighted than used to. So granted, our stuff's always for free. It's always a community resource to take people out and help them that way. And so that's kind of how we have such great relationships with some of those organizations, is we're trying to do a lot to help do it right and educate people and get them out doing what they need to be doing, not going off by themselves and then sending search and rescue out for them afterwards.
That's funny. Have you had anything like that? Do you know of any stories like that?
Oh, I know of way too many
Really?
stories like that. Yeah, no. And part of what's scary is we do have an older clientele, and some of them that just don't want to give up their freedom yet. So there's been a few instances that resulted in a search and rescue.
No kidding.
But they all ended up with
Happy endings.
good results. There has been a few in Moab that aren't as great because they are in such remote areas that haven't turned out so good. But locally, most of ours, and we have a fabulous search and rescue. That's another thing. Our sheriff's department's involved. All of our people here are they're so great. They're so easy to work with. They're supportive. They all have Jeeps and toys, and they like to go out and use them. They like to get involved.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's really it's fascinating because you uniquely have to deal with government agencies on all levels then. Because once again, there's not a lot of companies, I'm just sitting here other than paying taxes, that have specific interaction with how the BLM or how a federal agency is managing something that can actually help or hurt your business.
Yeah.
So, but you have, in this area, you have so many people just in leadership positions that are into this type of lifestyle, that they're even more supportive of these resources and this type of thing.
Yeah.
And it helps with tourism too, right? I mean,
Yeah. So I mean, all of it plays together. If we're marketing and we're open to those people coming in, they're going to come spend their dollars here. If we have our trails laid out, if we have new trails being developed, that's going to help keep bringing people here and keeping them entertained every time they come. So anything we can do to get the community on board. Another great thing we do is we work with Leadership Dixie. It's a group of business leaders in the community. And so we help them every day on Art, Parks, and Recreation Day. And we take them out jeeping at Sand Hollow. So those are people that would never get on that mountain. So if you're not in a specific level of four-wheel drive, you don't go there. And so being able to take them out and show them what we have and show them what we do out there helps expand the community to be okay with it too. So everything we can do kind of is going to play a part in keeping that open, keeping the resource available, keeping everybody happy, safe, and keeping our business open.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So how do people get a hold of you?
Every way possible. So we have our regular storefront. Anyone can come by Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We've got Dixie4WheelDrive.com. Again, tons of resources. We put blogs out on information all the time. So it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you have. You can probably find information there. You can find the maps. You can find GPS or GPX maps to all the surrounding area. And then pictures of all the different builds. So if you're thinking about doing something, you can go check stuff out there.
When you say builds, you mean
builds? So essentially, you're going to come in and do your upgrades.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So
All
we just
things
call it your build, because usually it's more than just one specific thing. A lot of places just do suspension. We do all of it.
All of it.
Yeah. So Instagram, Facebook, you name it.
You got all the social media covered, all the different places. That's
We're not
awesome.
very good at Twitter. I'm not going to lie. But I will keep an eye on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Tara, thanks for visiting with me about this today. This is super enlightening, super fascinating stuff. It's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.